All right, for those of you that are interested or just want to check some things out, one of the most common things we see in the groups, both of the larger OBS 240-300 groups, is my fuel is bleeding into my front tank, or I don't have the right fuel pressure or something. So I'm gonna do this video real quick, just a quick synopsis of the fuel system. This is on a 94, but the principles still apply. So obviously, selector switch, right? Now, on the older Fords, the piping and plumbing and some of the things are a little different. On the newer OBSs, and I can't remember the year break, I want to say it's 93, it might be 89. The fuel assembly has a internal check valve. So no matter which tank you use, it has an internal check valve. The valve is actuated by venturi pressure when the pump is turned on. So if I select the rear tank and the check valve on the front tank is bad, then the pump will pressurize the line, you know, go all the way down, comes to a T on the, and that is one difference on the later model old body styles. It just comes to a traditional T, whereas on like the diesels and the very early dual tank models, it went to a 6-way valve, which is prone to fail. So you can upgrade to this, to your setup this way, and it won't matter. So anyways, pressurizes the line, right? The check valve here fails internally, and as a result, it pressurizes this tank. So any fuel not used through the pressure system goes into your front tank, and that's why whichever tank is filling up is the one that has the bad check valve. It's almost always this one first. I have seen it the other way, but it's not too common. So just as another quick thing, Ford sold a recall kit that essentially installed, and this was on the earlier systems, installed an external check valve. You can't find them. Every once in a while I'll see the recall kit on eBay for some outrageous price, but that's all it is. All it is a check valve, you know, a high pressure fluid check valve. You can redo your fuel system, and a lot of people ask this about, especially if they're doing any type of engine swaps or performance mods, turboing. The original Ford fuel lines are 3/8 inch feed and I believe 5/16 return. So they're great. They're extremely durable, extremely rigid. They're a nylon, or I think pretty sure they're nylon internal. But anyways, they're braided steel jacketing, and then you know your traditional shielded, you know, rubberized coating or polyethylene or whatever they wrap it in. Very, very durable. In fact, they're extremely hard to cut. But every once in a while, somebody will want to change them or want to do some heavy modifications. Another common thing that you see that drive people crazy a lot is the fuel filters. On these old lines, the fuel filters and the Ford quick release fittings are terrible. People break them all the time. They can't get them off all the time. Older trucks, they're full of crud. They drive people crazy. So again, you can change all of this out. You can build your own fuel system, and it's not an issue. So you can see, I'll show you mine. If you decide to keep the stock engine, or really any EFI Ford engine, and you want to change your lines out, you want to make it a more robust system, easier to work on, tired of dealing with those stupid fittings, there's only one major thing you have to do. And that is, ignore the engine. On the original Ford engine, where it connects to the fuel rail, which, you know, you can see it here on this engine, but, you know, it's in the back on the Ford engine. And those quick disconnect fittings are just like any other quick disconnect fitting. You can buy them. They come in a kit. I think Aeromotive sells them. I think Evil Energy sells them. You know, you can get them on Summit. They're usually listed for the 5.0, but it's the exact same fitting. So yeah, you replace these, and when you replace these on the Ford version, you can the fitting adapts to a 6AN standard fitting, which is what I have on my return side. So what I did on mine, with this engine anyway, is I have 8AN feed and 6AN return. You can do the exact same thing on the original Ford, right? So if you're having trouble, you can do just like this. You have a external fuel pressure regulator with a gauge, which is very useful. I've added an electronic fuel pressure regulator, so as I'm driving I can monitor fuel pressure, you know, live. But you can do this with the regular Ford. So then they travel down just like they would normally, however you decide to route yours. Mine are pretty much routed stock, so you can see they go up there and then they simply follow the original. Yeah, I know it's got pink brackets. My dad, when I was younger, wanted to paint everything TD pink, so that's what he used to say. So in his homage anyways, I painted a couple brackets pink. So you can see the fuel lines follow. They use the standard standoff bracket that the original ones used. I just drilled this hole out and put a bracket, and I mean, not a bracket, you know, a little hose separator clamp. I ran them. Okay, so this is the next thing that people deal with a lot. Once you change your check valves, and if you change your fuel pump assembly, you know, after your second or third time, you're going to get real tired of these garbage pumps that we have access to. So one of the things you can do, and you can do this on the newer system or on the older system, is go use the return line and just buy one of these solenoids, and it's very simple to wire up and install. I'll put the part number and everything in the description. So you have return line in. The way I have it wired is I tapped into the signal for the front tank, power feed signal, and that drives the solenoid. So when I have the fuel pressure switch set to front, obviously it turns on the front tank pump, but it also actuates this solenoid, so it diverts the return to the front tank only. When you select the rear tank, no power goes to the front tank signal sending unit, obviously, and it de-energizes this solenoid, allowing return fuel to go the other way, and that goes to the rear tank. These are extremely cheap. They're extremely reliable. This is by Standard Products. They're very, very low current draw, so it has no effect on the system. Even so, the reason I wired it into the front pump is just a matter of you know, resistance and distance. So the front pump, being the one that drives the solenoid, would use less current. Excuse me, not less current. It would be less resistance, therefore less of a voltage drop, using the front tank power feed rather than doing the exact same thing, which you could do with the rear tank feed. So anyways, very simple, very straightforward. Power, the body of it is your ground. You can see I have ground on each side, and that's it. And then it goes back. Now this is the next thing that's awesome about if you do any of these upgrades. You get rid of that terrible Ford fuel pump that likes to corrode and you can't get the fucking fittings on it. You can't get them off and it's annoying, right? So this is just a standard Summit Racing high flow fuel filter, 8AN coming out for the, you know, fuel feed, obviously. The filters, they're cheap and they're easily replaceable. The screens are reusable. I think these are 40 micron. So yeah, they work great. I have no issues with it. You can see going into the filter, and then all you do if you want to build your fuel system is you'll need, now I will say this is not cheap, right? Because all these fittings are expensive. It's hard to see in this, but there's a Y right there. And it has dual 6AN in and single 8AN out. The dual 6AN in comes from pressure feed, fuel feed side from each tank. It just pressurizes the whole side, which is how the actual original late model OBS system works. It pressurizes, it goes to a Y. And then you can see, just put some nice standoffs and clamps and for the hoses. So if we come back up top here, again, so pressure out. You need to put an external check valve if you do this. These are, I think, FIC. I can't really remember. Anyways, they're more expensive brand. I had Russell check valves on here before, and they failed. So don't use the Russell check valves. They're garbage. So, yeah, like I said, I think these are FIC, or they might even be Aeromotive. Anyways, my pumps are all now upgraded to 340 LPH Aeromotive pumps. They essentially, the way that you do it, and I can't show you right now. The fuel pump assembly inside, when you take it out and disconnect the arm for the fuel level adjuster, you just take the cap off of the assembly for the pump, because the pump is inside that plastic container. You take the cap off, remove the old pump or the stock pump or whatever is in there. You put the 340 LPH pump in there. It is tight. There are some places that it makes the cap extremely hard to get back on. All you need to do if you use these Aeromotive, and I'll put the link for those as well, they're a good replacement. They fit the best from what I've found. You can do a little doctoring on them with a Dremel and a little grind wheel to give yourself the clearances you need, both on the pump and a couple places on the little, I don't know what the fuck you call it, the housing that you put the pump in. It's not a big deal. It takes no time at all to do that. So yeah, then you put that back on there, blah, blah, blah. So pressure feed, 6AN coming out. Make sure you get a check valve, and then this is return, 6AN return. You can see it goes down. It goes down to that Y block that I showed y'all, which has both the 6AN feeds from each tank. Same thing here. 6AN, pressure side, check valve, return side. If you're wondering what is going on with my wiring, why I have these extra plugs and all this stuff wrapped up, I did a hot wire kit because that's actually the next thing I was going to get to. These systems are old, the plugs are old, the wiring's old, the tolerances and a lot of the plugs have gotten worn over time. Especially if you do a lot of modifications, you're constantly plugging and unplugging. So what I found is there's a massive voltage drop between the alternator to the actual power to the plug. So being that this is going to be, this engine's going to be turbocharged shortly, I didn't want any voltage drop issues, and I actually had pressure supply issues due to that voltage drop. So from the front, I ran 10 gauge power and ground, and essentially the way that I have it set up, which again anyone can do this, the normal fuel pump power feed from the switch, instead of it going directly to the pump, it triggers a relay. So you got the main 12 volt 10 gauge power and ground coming from the battery. They come out here into the relay, right? So the trigger, like when I turn the front pump on and it's supposed to send the power signal to actually power the pump, that is my coil. It energizes one side of my coil for this relay. And when it does that, the big 10 gauge power coming straight from the battery is switched back to the pump. And same thing. So these are both double throw relays. So same thing, when I throw the switch for the rear, it comes in this relay. The trigger from the rear pump comes into this relay and then outputs you know, it's the same thing, the normal 12 volts that's coming straight from the battery. And then, you know, I just added a ground, and all the ground ties in there. So yeah, I hope that helps some people out. We get questions about this all the time, you know, so I'm going to put a lot of tags in this so that people, when they search, they can find some information, you know, related. If they search, you know, fuel cross feeding or anything like that, they'll be able to find this.